Well, in some more political news, we are halfway through the budget process here.
That's right. We're about 2.5 months in with 2.5 months to go. And among the agencies set to receive billions of dollars, the Department of Health Services. Joining us now with a breakdown of where your tax dollars will be spent, political analyst Brandon Scholes. Hi, Brandon.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Okay, so we're halfway there.
Halfway there, and just to recap, where's the money spent? Well, there's 55 agencies, boards, and commissions that it's spent. It's $119 billion. And last time, the stack of the size of the budget was like this. We're going to take one agency today. Before we get there, let's talk a little bit about what's happened. We've had 2 public hearings across the state, and we're going to have 2 more. One is up north in Hayward. The other one is coming in Wausau. And that's where people can come and speak to the Joint Finance Committee. They're there all day. They get 3 minutes, but usually you see these meetings are packed, and this is where people go to want to talk to their legislators, share their stories. After that, the Joint Finance Committee comes back in May, and that's when they sit up at the Capitol and they go through day after day after day of going through all the agency budgets. They have agency briefings, and eventually they start to vote on whether they want to keep the governor's proposal or their proposal or somewhere in the middle or none of it. So they go through a month, and then in June, we'll see the legislature start to vote on those things. So we're getting to the hot pot. It's going to be, red hot pretty soon come May and June. But we're getting there. But in the meantime, we thought we'd talk about some of the agencies that spend a lot of money, and there's a lot that don't spend very much. The Education Communication Board has a $14 million budget. It's teeny, tiny, but they do a lot of good work. But something like the Department of Health Services,
that's the big one,
which is huge. In fact, and this is a lot of tiny print, but of the $119 billion, the Department of Health Services has the biggest budget, followed by, you can see it up on the screen, $42 billion. That's almost half of what they spend.
Really?
It's followed by the Department of Public Instruction, which is about 8, and then followed by the UW, which is only $7 billion. So it's big stuff. But a lot of programs in the Department of Health Services, almost of 119 programs, 17 deal with Medicaid or some sort of Medicaid expansion or Medicaid programs. But there's lots of different programs. There's nursing homes, there's interpreter service, there's lead poisoning, Alzheimer's, women's health, grant for diaper banks. I mean, you could go on and on and on for all these programs. But what you have to take a look at this, because they're going to argue about this. This is a lot of money. So you look at the increase. For next year, 2026, it's $20 billion. For the next year, 27, and that's a 25% increase. The next year, it's $21 billion, and that's 5% over the next one. So there's a lot of money built in, and they expect a lot of money come from the federal government. They're looking for almost, $20 billion coming from the Fed. So whether or not that money comes or not, that's questionable. The other thing to look at is they have almost 6,700 employees spread throughout not only the big office in Madison, but then 4 other offices around the state. The governor's proposing to increase that to 6,800 employees. One of the fights that people will be watching is, do they work in the office or do they work at home? So that is a brewing fight in the legislature, and whether or not they approve the staff, the full-time positions is another story, but there are things that they will agree on. You'll see that they will probably look to the budget to say what things can Republicans and the governor and Democrats agree on. Postpartum benefits, probably one of them. And again, there's 119 programs, so they're all kind of negotiable to see where they end up. But
so they are on the same page about some things.
I found at least one.
Well done.
But give them time, because there's a lot of people that are going to be talking about this. There's a lot of agency briefings. They will deep dive into it. And remember, they could continue to what's called cost to continue. If they just did nothing, it would cost about $1.5 billion, 1.6 here for the cost to continue their operation. So that is a possibility too, and we're still talking a lot of money. So if they get the big one out of the way, and this is probably the fight that you'll see coming at the very end, because this is the one where everybody's going to clash over. This is probably the one that has the biggest impact on it. So they can get updates here, they can look at Wisconsin. I get updates, they can call their legislator to find out what's going on, or go to one of those public hearings if you're up in Hayward or up north someplace.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear about all the nuts and bolts that go into some of these big numbers that we hear about. Yeah.
If you want to read through it sometime, I'd be happy to show you where it is. But I couldn't.
Reading.
It's almost impossible to take you through all the pages, because some go over here, some go over here, some money comes here, and it's really, for the people that do the budgeting, you really have to give them a ton of credit, because it is incredibly hard to understand.
Well, thank you for being on with us to break it all down.
Yes, helping us understand it.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, Brandon. Thank you.